Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Simply Walk the Talk. This is going to be a really fun episode because, well, I know I say this quite a bit on a lot of my episodes, but obviously I love what I do. And today's episode is going to be one of those ones that I'm quite positive you're going to want to refer back to, because we're going to talk a lot about PEMF, which stands for Pulsed Electromagnetic Frequency or Pulsed Electromagnetic Fields. If you've heard about it, great. I'm sure many of you have some understanding, but today we're going to dive quite a bit deeper into what that is really about, how you can apply that to your life to optimize your overall health and wellness. And for those of you who don't know what PEMF is all about, well, you're probably living under a rock, and it's no judgment there. But on today's show, we have Mr. Pete Marroni. Pete is the founder of PIM Fit and co-founder of Optimal Hydration. After battling chronic illness for over 30 years, Pete rebuilt his health through all the radical lifestyle changes, deep research, and cutting-edge cellular therapies. What began as a mission to help his local community quickly became a UK-wide wellness movement. 5 years ago, Pete made a huge leap of faith, investing in Europe's first Pulse PEMF XL Pro system. It was a major commitment, but he wanted the very best for his clients. By combining breakthrough PEMF technology with a human, people-first approach, PIM Fit grew rapidly. Now, today, Pete and his team help thousands across the UK reclaim energy, vitality, high performance, and whole body wellness. Pete's aim is for everyone to have access to optimal wellness, energy, and the freedom to do what makes them happy in life.
Welcome to Simply Walk the Talk. Our bodies and minds adapt to what we do most of the time. If you want to change your body and mind, you must change what it is you do most of the time. This podcast explores all things health, wellness, fitness, lifestyle, and biohacking. Stay tuned as we explore various thoughts, methods, and experiences from a multitude of conversations between our interesting guests and experts through many fields of work. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Simply walk the talk. Simply walk the talk.
Mr. Pete Marroni, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Josh. It's a pleasure to be here. And for any listeners, it's really nice to meet you all. So.
Yeah. This is like I said in the intro, I have fun with all of my episodes, but this one is really fun because we've known each other for quite some time. I don't even really recall how we first got into contact with each other, but nonetheless, we recently saw each other in person. And actually, this was the first time we met in person in Austin at the Biohacking conference, Dave Asprey's Biohacking conference, and you're wearing the Austin shirt. So
in honor of you, Josh.
No, this was really fun. I think if we're able to make it work, we'll throw in some photos of us like together actually at the conference. You know, I had my jumpsuit on, which was really fun, and I think I had just finished recording a small podcast interview at the Pulse booth, right?
Yeah.
So maybe you'll see some of that info or content that comes out. But you know, it was great to meet you in person, but it was also very good to see actually more of who you are. You know, like I can get a sense for a person through phone calls and emails and texts and things like that. But when you see someone in person, you get a chance to really feel their energy. And we're going to be talking a lot about energy, but I think you have a story to tell, and I think it's important for people to kind of hear how you got to where you are today, because there's surely someone out there who can relate to your story. And I want to show them that there is a way to help improve your life and your vitality. And yeah, I want to hear your journey.
Thank you, Josh. And it was a real pleasure to meet with you as well and to get to know you, because I completely agree. Phone calls and text messages and live chats, but there's no substitute for being with somebody. And I got a real sense of you also, and it was all fantastic. And we we really hit it off. I think we managed to meet every day during the course of the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and have really nice little interactions, and on the Pulse booth or Vivo or just around. It was great. It was a whirlwind. And yeah, it was so great to meet you. So thank you. I mean, you've already said a few things about me. If I'm totally honest, I like to leave it at that, but, you know, I'm slightly, embarrassed about my story when it comes to health and wellness and where I am now. I'll just cut to the chase. I'm well into my 56th year. I feel amazing. I was a healthy kid at school. I won everything on sports day. I've obviously done a few genetic tests. I've got 2 sprinter genes, so it's an unfair advantage. So that as a kid, I was, any of the power sports, I just won them, throwing, running, jumping, up to 400 meters. After that, I was rubbish. I couldn't swim. But apart from that, it was game over. And in my late teens, I just started experiencing weird symptoms, tummy pains, headaches, lethargy. Wasn't there permanently, but it would come and go. And I used to enjoy my sport, but it would start to affect things. And Mum walked in on me one day. It was a Sunday afternoon. I'd been playing tennis. I used to play tennis for the city, and I had some tummy pain, and I was just laying in a fetal position in bed. She walked in. "What's wrong with you?" I said, I've got stomach ache. I've got tummy pain. So off to the doctor. And, we can kind of fast forward roughly about 30 years, but I saw many, many well-intended people who wanted to help me. But I suppose they didn't have the tools for me. They couldn't piece together, there's this going on, all these weird and wonderful things. So I remember in the, how old was I? I was in my late teens. I sat in the GP, we call them a GP here, general practitioner, so a medical family doctor. And he kind of laughed at me when he said it, and he said, or laughed with me, and he said, "You got something called yuppie flu." This is probably a term you're not familiar with. Back in the 80s, they had these things in London called yuppies, and they were, young, upwardly mobile, big Motorola phone, and it was seen as a modern disease, but we now call it chronic fatigue syndrome, ME, CFS, long COVID, post-viral, whatever. This has been going on there's many records since Spanish flu, post-viral malaise. Anyway, you're prone to it or you're not. It appears to be at almost epidemic levels now, certainly in the West. And I was told I had yuppie flu, and I said, "What's that?" And he said, "Read a newspaper." I was in my teens, so at the time I didn't read newspapers.
That's your prescription, huh?
That was my prescription. So he said, look, and he even said, he went on, and I'm going to quote verbatim. He said, "I don't believe in it, but some of my colleagues do." And I get that. I understand everyone's motivation for what I've been told over the years. He said, "I don't believe in it. Look, it's not going to kill you, but it's this thing. I'm going to call it yuppie flu, read a newspaper." So I was kind of left at that. Anyway, things got worse. And in my early 20s, I ended up in front of a surgeon he ran some scans on me, and he said, "Oh, I think you've got diverticulitis." And next thing I know, we'll get you in for a laparotomy, which I didn't know what that was. And I had this, huge incisional. He thought I had diverticulitis, and he drew a little diagram and said, "We'll just take these things off and job sorted." Anyway, as I'm coming around on the morphine, he whispered in this ear, "Nothing to see, red herring." Never heard any more on that. But then I was left with a number of incisional hernias. So, weakness in the abdomen. There was no rehab, unfortunately. We're going back now again to the early mid-80s. So, arguably in my prime, and I'm really struggling now because I've not just got all of these increasing chronic diseases, and, many of them of an autoimmune nature. And people say, "Oh, what did you have?" You pretty much name it, I had it. And over the years, I was diagnosed with all of these things from, name it, and I probably had it, from Hashimoto's to irritable bowel to various inflammatory skin conditions, migraine, um, mitochondrial myopia. I was sent everywhere, and I went in all directions just to try to feel better. So anyway, fast forward 30 years, and I was really struggling. I mean, I describe it, it was kind of like death by a thousand cuts. It was just every day I had less energy. I was in more pain from head to toe. I put my shoes on in the morning and get out the door and think, how am I going to get through today? I don't have that problem anymore, which shouldn't be the case because I'm quite a bit older than I was. But I think that's the power of our incredible biology and your environment. Let's just call it that for now. But I was struggling, and I was really operating on willpower, which I had a lot of, but that runs out. So my willpower lasted about 30 years. And then I was then told, you've got something really bad. That's bad luck. So I won't go into a lot of detail with it, but it was an esophageal issue. And, these issues are anyone who's into data and looking at increasing causes of mortality. Esophageal issues are very, very quickly rising in the West. Very dangerous, very painful, very high mortality rates. They're up there with pancreatic issues. So this was scary. And I was told, look, it's bad luck. And it was kind of nothing we can do for you. At this point, I couldn't even speak. My job at the time, so I went from engineering to management and then management consultancy, and I used to travel around the world helping people solve problems. But at this point, I was on my own. So I actually took a sabbatical from work, largely because my job in consultancy was talking to people. But I couldn't talk. I had no voice. I also couldn't swallow saliva. I couldn't sleep at night. I was given proton pump inhibitors, PPIs.
Also, how ironic is it that you were working in a job in which you help people solve problems, but you couldn't really solve your own problem?
No.
Right.
Isn't it?
Interesting.
And well, do you know why that was? Because I didn't trust myself. I trusted the experts.
Yeah.
I didn't trust my gut.
Pun intended.
And yeah, and I was in front of countless, very, very well-intended people, really good professionals. And I think, going back to that time, it's not long ago, but a lot's happened in this space since then, where what was once controversial is now almost mainstream. And front page news. I was reading an article last night on a subject. It's like, this would not have been published 2 years ago, let alone 10 years ago. So I was left on my own, and I didn't trust myself. I'm going in saying, look, when I do this, this happens. And I would just get an odd look, and they go, this is all in your head. You need to go see a hypnotherapist or whatever, or take this tablet, or we'll do more biopsies on you and find out what's going on with your mitochondrial function, or we'll shove another camera in another hole. So anyway, things were really bad. And I was in pretty dire straits. So I was on my own. And I thought, well, I need to take some time out. I need to try and sort this out for myself. I'm a pretty curious soul, I suppose you could describe me as. I'm a bit of a geek. I like brevity, but I also appreciate in some things the devil is in the detail. I looked at family history, mainly on my mum's side. My mum was sadly very sick at the time. It was a long illness. I looked also at her mother, and I started digging into a lot of peer-reviewed study, spent a lot of time on PubMed, did a lot of research, and I thought, perhaps I've got some mitochondrial issues here. all that maternal line stuff. And I also thought perhaps there's some stuff going on in the gut here. There appeared to be lots of autoimmune issues based around gut integrity. Medicines that I had, dishwashers, bottle feeding. I was bottle fed. I just started putting two and two together and thinking, perhaps it can't be this straightforward. Maybe I've got a gut issue and I've got mitochondrial. I need mitochondrial support. So I just set about trial and error. Some things worked, some things inadvertently were not the right things to do, but I learned, I suppose, fairly quickly. And very, very quickly, things turned around to the point I didn't even realize that things were improving, because pain's a funny thing and discomfort's a funny thing. When it is there, our bodies are really smart, aren't they? They say, hey, something's wrong, sort it out. But in this day and age, we subcontract that to somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's exactly what I did. It's kind of the better way of saying what I was trying to say earlier.
Yeah, we call that here. I like to refer to that as the check engine light, and I forget what they call it over there in the UK, but it's like everyone can understand that there's a check engine light, and you've got a couple ways of dealing with that. You've got the person who ignores it, hopes it just goes away, turning off the car, turning it back on. You've also got the person who immediately goes, I need to go to the garage, as you would say, right?
Yeah.
I need to go there to, have them sorted out. Or you have the person that kind of tries to figure it out on their own. And then if it's above their pay grade, then you take it in to get it checked on. And I feel like as biohackers, that's what we try to do, is first and foremost be aware that there is a signal that we might be able to do something about on our own, right? So just being aware of the signal and that there's a problem that needs to be fixed or needs to be adhered to, that's kind of step one, the awareness of it all. And then this next step is, why would you want to give your full autonomy to someone else when there's a number of things you can have in a checklist, but you need to have a checklist in the first place? Right. So anyway, I think that's what you're saying, but this is very much similar to what I hear all the time.
Yeah.
So please continue. Yeah.
Well, thank you. And I love the I love your explanation of it, because that is exactly what I went through. And there I am on my own, thinking, okay, well, this is down to me, but it's not going to end well. Because what do I know? But I'm digging into PubMed, thinking, and I'm I suppose connecting some dots, thinking, well, because really only your body better than anything else. And it's like, when I do this, this, and this happens. But what I was getting in feedback was, well, that's got nothing to do with that and that. And you need to go and see this person. So I went through 30 years of this. No one should go through that, which is partly what drives me, but perhaps we'll talk about that later. Anyway, so it wasn't really me initially that noticed a big difference. It was actually people around me saying quite profound things, family members, very close friends, saying, what are you doing? Because you are looking different, you are sounding different, and I want some of that. And I'm saying, well, don't ask me, because the stuff I'm now doing is the opposite pretty much to what I've been told to do. You really think I'm looking and feeling better? Yes, definitely tell me. I'm like, well, you're healthy. They're saying, I'm not healthy at all. I was just healthier than you. So I really, at this point, I'm thinking, well, I don't really understand what's going on here, but I'll kind of tell you a little bit about what I'm doing. They applied a few, and this is just simple stuff. This is, let's just call it ancestral wisdom, but it all made sense, and I really dug deep, I suppose, and then into epigenetics, genetics, epigenetics, our environment. My body just didn't know what the heck I was putting into it, in terms of light, in terms of food, in terms of hydration, in terms of stress. I wasn't sleeping properly, and when you realize how quickly our bodies, as adaptable as we are, but how far away from how we have evolved, and how quickly that timeline is, it starts to explain a lot, and a lot hit me quite quickly, because within probably 3 months, my body just completely changed, to the point where people did not recognize me.
In what way? Like more specific?
Physically, I would meet people in work. So I would meet ex-colleagues that I'd not seen in a few months. And I can name a number of instances, including my GP retired, who was a really lovely guy, who was doing his very best for me, which was sending me to consultants and prescribing me medications, which I'm not saying is the wrong thing, but for me, what I had, clearly didn't work. But even he lived in the village I lived in, and he walked past me one day and didn't recognize me, and I said, "Oh, hi, doctor." I won't mention his name, and he said, "Hi," and I said, "Oh, it's Pete." "Hi." Anyway, so he was one of them. Anyway,
was this mostly because of weight loss or the
it
skin?
was, let's call it inflammation. So, which I mean, when the body's trying to deal with systemic inflammation, it hangs on to fluid, and I sent you a couple of pictures, with 10 years difference to the day. Google reminded me, hey, 10 years ago, this was you. Didn't know, it didn't see the significance for me, but it reminded me. I have dozens of those photographs of me 20, 30 years ago, 10 years ago, struggling, reaching this point. Things had to get really bad before I took control. And I managed to find some solutions, and I've obviously learned a lot more since, and I'm still learning. That's for me, one of the real pleasures in life. And I know for you, we're very aligned in that respect. And making mistakes is also great, as long as they're not too big. But, made a good one today with a microphone, and it's like, right, I won't do that again. So I quite like making mistakes, but not twice. So, people physically wouldn't recognize. So I was in a business doing my consultancy, and I was in this business one day, and I saw this guy who I knew, and I'd only seen him a year ago. He was actually in my team at work. So he used to report to me, and I worked with him for a couple of years. And I walked up to him, shook his hand, and said, "Hey, how good to see you. Great to see you." Mentioned his name, and he looked at me, saying, "I'm sorry, I don't really." He said, "You look familiar, but I can't remember your name." I said, "It's Pete." I said, "We worked together 12 months ago," and he was just dumbfounded. So the change was miraculous. The change, I suppose. And if people look at the pictures, if you look at the lips, if you look at eyes, I think if you look at skin tone, if you look at, there's certain things that when energy and vitality, and there's certain things. How rarely do you see a healthy person these days? I'm not quite sure in New York, but where I live, not often. Sadly, I can count the number of people who I would say are truly healthy. Far too few. And so it was just something that kind of captivated people. I then went back to my original job, and I'm flying around the world, and I'm talking to people, and it could be in Southeast Asia, it could be in Africa, it could be in North America, Europe. And very often, it would be via translators. And after a few days of working with them, here we go.
By the way, for those of you that are only listening, I decided, instead of just waiting for post-production to put this in, I decided to pop up one of the photos that Pete sent over to me. And I'm happy he's talking about it and mentioned that it's okay to share this. But this photo here that I have up represents what you were talking about in terms of, the look on your face, right? Like you could see the puffiness in the eyes. You can see a bit of redness around the cheeks. You're still a good looking guy, and it's a nice photo. But you can see the difference between that and that. I mean, like, this one here, obviously you've got the amazing system in the background that we're obviously going to talk a little bit about, but what is very noticeable is just like the quality of your skin looks better, your hair looks better, you're smiling. I mean, you're kind of smiling in both, smiling more in your eyes in this first before photo, but you're really smiling with your eyes, and everything of you just looks like a completely different person. So I can understand now why people were like, "Wait, who are you?"
You.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
And this happened really quickly. This did not take 10 years. I call this process chronology versus biology because, time is always moving forward. And everybody, myself included, think, well, things are going to get worse. And that is Mother Nature's plan. Let's be honest. We might talk about cell function a little bit later and, some of the basics or however much you feel is appropriate as to what's going on a biological level, on a cellular level. But Mother Nature's plan is it's survival of the fittest. And, things tend not to, past a certain point in life, things tend not to work better. And that is a chronological fact. However, biologically, you just said you look a different person. I am a different person. You and I both know every cell has been regenerated, renewed. But if we have better building blocks, if we have the energy in order to put that higher quality building block, let's call it an amino acid, for instance, because then I eat better than I did. And if we have better parts to build a body with, whether it's a thyroid, a skin cell, a part of the body that's not going to be named for 20 years, doesn't matter. It's still happening. I'm happy about that. But every single part of me, from my mucous membrane, which apparently, it's every sort of 24, 48 hours is renewed, down to maybe 4 to 7 years from various science studies that I've seen. Every part of the body is renewed over a time period. So not one part of me, perhaps, there's things that are not in the science books that I've seen, which is, let's call it the soul. I think you are still you, but on a cellular level, and a microbial level, because let's be honest, we're just this, a bag of salty water. This is me in September having major surgery, reconstructive surgery. And this was really interesting, actually, because I didn't know you had this picture.
from Instagram. So
You've
there you go.
pulled it up on Instagram. Yeah, this was a big one for me. I've got my toothbrush in. This is me wired up to so much stuff. I've just gone through 6 hours of surgery. I was at London Bridge Hospital. I had to search high and low because after my third abdominal surgery to correct the incisional hernias from the original laparotomy, sadly, the final one went wrong, badly wrong. I got sepsis, and it was a very close call. I was 111, you'd call it. We call it 999 in. And then my whole abdominal wall gave way. It wasn't a hernia. It was a divarication of the recti of sorts, not one that you would get, a woman may get in pregnancy, but it was a complete failure of the abdominal wall due to all of the surgeries, inflammation, and it going wrong. So I then had to search high and low for a team that would work with me that could do something. And I saw multiple teams, and they said that, hey, this is too big. It will fail. Nothing can work for it. And then I came across an amazing team in London, a professor. He was a transplant surgeon expert who worked very closely with, and if anybody, wishes to reach out after for recommendations, I'd be very happy to pass on them as being true professionals and caring people, not least extremely skilled. But the professor also worked with a microsurgeon, so a plastic surgeon, who co-pioneered he calls it reanimative abdominal surgery. He doesn't call it reconstructive abdominal surgery because of the complexity and what we ask the abdominal wall to do. So anyway, they said, look, we think we can do this, but I was cut from here, my lateral muscles here had to be separated in order to bring together the abdominal wall. And this went right down to just the pubic bone, all the way down, even reopening up the original surgery from 30 plus years ago. So, as every doctor's told me, look, avoid the knife at all costs, but there are necessary evils. And I'm grateful for any support and help and medications. I had some pain meds in that hospital, and the anaesthetist came to me, and he's a very highly qualified guy, and he just said, look, Pete, do not. He said, I saw your face pull when I mentioned fentanyl and OxyContin, and I said, that's because I know what they are. And he said, yes, I know. And he's tapping on my morphine drip. This is after 24 hours after. And he said, do not take this without a spinal. So I took the spinal. And he said, let me tell you, you have not got addiction problems. You barely touched your morphine. So I'm fortunate in that respect that, I don't have those problems. But so I said, well, what would you take? He said, I'd take the OxyContin and the pain busters, the oxynorms. So that's what I did. I did have withdrawals at the end of it, but they were just stomachache and sweats. I could not wait to get off those things. But interesting story about that. Before I went in, the professor rang me with my labs, my preoperative labs, and he's saying, what's going on with your biology? He said, your lab results are highly unusual. Your CRP, your inflammatory markers. He said, are you taking NAD? And I said, what form? He said, oh, you probably know more about NAD than me. I said, for the record, I'm not taking NAD, but occasionally I will, but I'm not. And he said, well, something really strange is going on with your inflammatory markers. I've never seen them so low. So I thought, well, that's a good start. And then every day they would come in. They told me that I'd be in for 14 nights in the hospital. It was private surgery. Unfortunately, there was no insurance. I had to self-fund it. It was painful in every respect. But I was due to be in for 14 nights, and I was out in 7. After a couple of nights, they said, you might be out in 8 because we've never seen recovery like this. I asked them what the biggest risk was, and they said, because we have to deflate part of the lungs because we're going up into the rib cage, because they put the biomesh in, and it was the biggest piece of biomesh that the company supplied because it's the entire area. But the professor came to me 2 or 3 days in, and he said, look, you have got pneumonia, but you're fighting that off no problem whatsoever, because you can't cough, of course, when you've had abdominal surgery. So, of course, you get these secretions and you can't cough them up. You can do it, but it hurts like hell.
My goodness.
Even with all the pain meds. So he said, no, this is the biggest risk. Anyway, I was out in 7 nights, but when it came to my lab results, every morning they would come in. These are true professionals, very dedicated. And they'd come in my room in the morning. They'd take, I had, cannulas everywhere. They're taking all these. They're looking at all my inflammatory markers. They're looking at my protein levels. And the professor and the plastic surgeon, and by the way, this team had hundreds of peer-reviewed studies between them. So these are highly professional. They've worked all over the world: Seoul, Tokyo, Stockholm, London. Hundreds of peer-reviewed studies, and they're saying, we've never seen lab results like yours. What is going on? The professor said to me one morning, he said, I've never seen results like this. I said, well, which ones are you talking about today? He said, your albumin levels have not moved. He said, for surgeries that we do, these normally crash. I said, well, I know what albumin is. Tell me the relevance. He said, well, when we cut through tissue, the tiny blood vessels, so capillaries, he said, they collapse and you bleed out albumin. He said, and levels crash. He said, yours have not moved. He said, and he just kept saying, I've never seen this before. I've never seen this before. And he said, what's going on? And they knew I have some knowledge with regards biochemistry. So they were fascinated in, look, here's a layperson who can perhaps explain what's going on and what it's like as a patient to go through this experience, because whilst I was on pain meds, I was still pretty cognizant of what was going on around me. So they were quite fascinated. So every day they'd spend an hour plus with me, just wanting to know and they're saying, look, the speed of your tissue healing is remarkable. We've never seen skin repair so quickly. Before I had the surgery, the plastic surgeon, and this was Harley Street, and it's anyone that knows in Europe, there's an area in London where, sadly it's very expensive, but it's where a lot of the real talent does go. And this was the level that I needed. I saw the plastic surgeon and he's saying, yeah, how old are you? And look at your skin, what's going on? So before the surgery, he was quite surprised. And he said, all of the factors that we're worried about, you haven't got any of these comorbidities, and this is going into a big surgery. So long story short on that, in a nutshell, they're just saying, we've not seen labs like this before. What you are doing in terms of preparation for surgery is light years ahead of what we're recommending and what we need to know about. So they're very curious now. And I just said, look, I hydrate well, because I've not really, you did mention I have co-founded a hydration company. So I believe that we hydrate, and that is with minerals. It's not just pure water, but it's minerals, and then activating those, and then modulating that with energy of PEMF. So I explained briefly. There we go. So this is a system I have at home. It's a plug and play. We just plug it in, but it's a 6-stage purification. It's got molecular hydrogen in. We have our 72 trace minerals. We also do molecular hydrogen tablets. We feel we source the best of the best. We do under-counter systems as well, but this isn't a sales pitch. This is just, anyway, we hydrate. We're electrical. Every single part of our body, everything we do is electrical. You know this. I'm sure many of the listeners know this, but we forget it. It's day one medical school. It's taught here in secondary school, as we would call it, in biology, Krebs cycle. How does mammalian tissue regenerate? How do we recover? The whole basis of surgery is the fact that they know with a good chance of repairing, and that is via this process of ATP production and the ability to repair. But that declines as we get older. It's aging. We were talking about it earlier. Turns out my body repaired quicker than they've ever seen anything before, and they're saying you're 56, or 55 at the time actually of that. What's going on? So that was an interesting process. So interesting tangent to go off with you bringing that up, but yeah, it was a fascinating story and we're now still working with this team because they're saying, look, we need to do better, we need to know more, and this is something that we've just not seen, and it's probably not a fluke that this is just a coincidence that it's just you that this is working on, and that we're seeing these unusual lab results and recovery. We're still recovering, by the way. Yeah. It's an 18-month recovery from this surgery. So.
Wow. Well, I definitely appreciate the level of detail, because again, this is something that someone out there might be able to relate to, and then others may not be able to relate to at all. But at some point, with the prevalence of inflammatory disease across the world, not even just in the West, but just around the world, inflammatory disease is at the root of most diseases and most issues. And so hearing what you went through, and then obviously the next transition is going to be, okay, what are some of those things you did? I think this is where people should listen in, right? Hopefully they are still listening to this point. I'll have this timestamp so that people can skip past the story if they need to or want to. But let's talk about the things that you did. And maybe we start with, because I would assume that part of it was PEMF. I would assume. Maybe I'm wrong, but let's hear some of it.
Yeah. So you mentioned the term biohacking earlier. It's I'm from the early biohacking community, although it's not something you'll see me. We met at the biohacking event, and I was invited, as I'm sure you were. So that's why I was there. I have a love-hate relationship with it, if I'm perfectly honest, because it saved my life on the one hand. Because from this and taking control of my biology and from understanding the root causes of my diseases, And therefore, as with my old job, if I understood what the problems were, I could do something about it. And it all became very clear. So I originally realized I thought it can't be as simple as I need mitochondrial support and I need to repair my gut lining. Because I had all the signs of that. Anyway, that worked. It worked for a period of time, and then things started coming back again. I had a list of things. I'm pretty methodical in the way I work. So food was a big factor. I wasn't eating real food. I was eating processed food, processed health junk food. Let's just call it that. I was also not eating the most nutrient-dense foods. I'm not a nutritionalist. I don't get into it. I just say, eat what your grandmother's grandmother ate. Eat regional, seasonal. This is not controversial anymore. As I say, it was on my front page of one of my newspapers yesterday saying, hey, fatten these food groups were good all along. This is front page news.
Like, duh.
Yeah, I know. Fancy that. But these are the food groups I avoided for 3 decades. And consequently, I was malnourished. So, but without these building blocks and the energy to put these building blocks in position, without the sleep, the deep sleep specifically, whereby my brain was repairing and my tissue was regenerating, and lymphatic cleansing and deep sleep cycles and proliferation of human growth hormone and testosterone, all these building block hormones, BDNF, all these things. Nothing was happening. This is the cruel thing about nature, isn't it? It's a death spiral. But if you can correct that, things also happen equally quickly. In fact, more so if you really know what you're doing. So things stopped working again. I started getting my fibromyalgia symptoms started coming back. My weak points. Everyone has an Achilles heel. With some people, it's their Achilles. But everyone has an Achilles heel, or at least one. Mine is my left shoulder. If that starts playing up, I know I'm going off course, okay? Because a bit of what you like does you good, yeah? Most of what I like is good for me, but sometimes I like to, indulge. But I know my limits. When I overstep them, that shoulder tells me. So this shoulder started becoming very, very uncomfortable. I fast forward 3 or 4 months, and I wasn't sleeping again, and I'm thinking, right, what am I going to do here? And I need to go back to exactly what I was doing. I did that, and it still didn't work. I'm a big fan of sauna. I had a very high quality medical grade sauna. I was doing hot and cold. I was spending a ludicrous amount of money, over £1,000 a month on supplements. I'm embarrassed to say. But I was traveling a lot. I needed, I felt at least I needed all the help I could get. But things started coming back, and I was doing photobiomodulation, so rend infrared light therapy. I was doing a lot of these things. Anyway, somewhere down on my list was PEMF. Now we get to PMF, and it's like, what the hell is this thing? How does it differ from PBM? How does it differ from near this or far this or mid this or this sound frequency? All these different frequencies. What are all these scary words? Hertz, Gauss, Tesla. Why does one machine look like this and costs £100? And why does one machine look like half of a room I've got over there, which costs not £100?
Add a couple zeros.
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest, we're talking serious investment, but and why is PMF equipment so expensive? So there's an Excel Pro, you know it well. I know you're very familiar with the technology. So I started experimenting with PMF. I bought one of these. It's called an Oscar Pulse by Oscar Wellness. I stuck it on my shoulder. It's a wearable. And I pushed the button. I stuck it. Oh, you can hear it. There we go. You can hear that going through different cycles. Each one of those pulses. Can you hear that, Josh?
I can hear it, and I see it pulsing.
Didn't expect to do that. Yes, we're not fans of the blue light, are we? As biohackers. I'll put these on, but it's reflective.
I mean, blue light in the daytime is
exactly,
right, as we know, is okay, but yeah.
So yeah, so there's a time and a place, but there you go. So we know it's working, and this is a great little device. It's a medically rated device, Californian company. It's a wearable. It's a low. I think it puts 9 Gauss out. This device. So this is really it's a skin deep device. Let's be perfectly honest. Gauss matters. Gauss or Tesla. These are the units of intensity. But I put this in my shoulder. And every time it ran out, I had the 30-minute timer one. This is the medic version, which I think is 3 hours now. That was a 30-minute timer. So, and I just wore it permanently with the strap on. And after 3.5 days, that thing happened again, which is that I referred to briefly earlier. When pain comes, it comes quickly. When discomfort comes, it comes quickly. And that's the feedback loop to say, hey, do something. Take your hand out of the flame, or whatever it may be. When pain goes, you're almost not aware of it. It's like an afterthought. It was people that reminded me that I was looking and acting differently. It was an afterthought that my shoulder pain had gone. But because I'd done my research, I realized this was not an analgesic. This was not a TENS machine. This was not blocking the feedback loop of pain. This was supporting my body's ability to repair itself via various mechanisms, which, if you wish to, we can go into what they are.
Yeah,
So that was
I'm
my.
glad you. I'm sorry to cut you off, but like I'm glad that you brought up that difference, that distinguishing qualifier, so to speak, between TENS therapy and other therapies, right? So like I'm very familiar with EMS technology, electrical muscle stimulation, but even that, even though TENS therapy is a part of electrical muscle stimulation umbrella, it's very different because we know that TENS therapy tends to blunt or reduce the signal to the brain of that pain response. And then the idea from there is to then be able to go and do something else. Maybe it's rehab, it's movement, it's some of these other modalities, so that you can get through it with less pain. But a lot of people think that the TENS therapy is the fix, and it's not. It's just it's like taking aspirin or like, taking an NSAID. It's like that is for you to then go and do the real thing, right? If you're so uncomfortable, okay, use TENS therapy, maybe use some aspirin or Tylenol or whatever, maybe. Like I personally wouldn't do it, but like it's not the fix. The fix is a lot of what you're talking about, and which is why I'm so interested for people to hear this, because I think it's going to be powerful. So please continue.
Yeah, no, totally agree in everything you've said. As I say, we're very aligned, and I know that you're extremely well versed in this strange space of PEMF and how it differs. And yeah, couldn't agree more. And if a TENS machine works, don't go out and run a half marathon. Just like if you have a shot in your knee, and how often you must see this all the time in your work.
Yeah.
You must see this all the time. I know I do. So, the difference with PEMF is the mechanism of action of PEMF is to varying degrees, depending on whether it's a high intensity or a low intensity piece of equipment. It will support the body in different ways. I should at this point as well, say, look, we're a wellness business. I'm not a medical doctor, and we're a wellness business. We don't diagnose, treat, cure, prevent anything. What we do in our company is we support. I would like to say in a big way, and because I know our clients definitely would. We very much support in every way into the environment, the supportive. The coaching and support that we give our clients, very, very sensible, very much staying within the wellness space. But in terms of the modality of PEMF, we're supporting the client and their body's ability to repair damaged tissue. In its essence,
Well,
I think the definition of pain and disease is low cell voltage. Okay, so this is one of the main issues. Low intensity PEMF works. The main issue, the main mechanism of action there is improved circulation. So if you can just improve circulation to a part of the body, this is a big deal. And we all know as we get older, looks like you're looking for a device.
Well,
What have you got?
okay, so I mean, I didn't even expect to go down this path, but because we both know of, like, in fact, before I even started working with Pulse, I had already been a fan of Robert O'Becker's work. Like, what is it? Healing is voltage, right?
I think
Or
Healing is Voltage, I think, was Jerry Tennant, but
yes,
the
Tennant.
Body Electric, I think,
The
was
Body Electric, yes,
yeah.
Robert O'Becker. Body Electric, that's right. Healing is voltage is Jerry Tennant, right?
Yes.
Jerry Tennant.
He was at the
So
conference.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
Well,
he was there. He's a legend.
he is a legend. However, this device is his competitor's device, right?
Wow.
So he has the, what is it called? The biomodulator. Are you
Yes.
familiar with that, right?
A little bit, yes.
Yeah, so the biomodulator is a device that measures cellular voltage, which is really cool. However, when I first used it, it was a dentist, a very, very talented dentist who also had a lot of research or a lot of experience in chiropractic care and things like that. So he wasn't your average dentist, let's put it that way. Um, and he used the biomodulator on me, and I was so he was able to measure throughout my body the cellular voltage level. And then I would use the XL Pro PEMF by Pulse. I would use that to then see if there was going to be an effect. And I thought, okay, this is really cool, but like, I want to get one at home so I can really test it and make sure that this is something I want to encourage people. And so this is the perfect opportunity to show it.
Wonderful.
This is by a company called Avazia Life. And this is the Pinnacle device here. And I got this from a company called Sauna Therapeutics. And because at Avazia, they had different options than what I was able to find on the sauna shop. So I got this device, and it's got all your different like electrodes. You've got like conductive gloves. So I can do like a massage with someone and emit frequencies while I'm doing a massage.
Wonderful.
I can do it, wear socks and get like grounding. So if it's like, these are socks with different plugs on them.
Yeah,
It's
so you're
hard to see.
properly grounded. Love it.
And then like here, like, you have something up with your wrist, you just connect this to the device.
Yeah.
But the cool thing about the device is not only does it emit certain frequencies, but you could also place this because of the metal conductive part on the back. You can place that throughout your body to measure the cellular voltage. And without fail, anytime somebody has something going on, I say to them, okay, don't tell me where your pain is. I'm going to find it. Right? So this is literally like it's almost like no placebo effect.
No.
I mean, one might be able to say, like, if I look at their face and I see them wince or whatever, but like, I promise you, when your shoulder was playing up, as you said, I could have put this on here, and I guarantee you the numbers on this would have been off the charts low.
Yeah.
Or off the charts high. Because what this does is then, based on the measurement, the scan you do, it gives you the perfect frequencies, multiple frequencies, to then run a program to help get that back into balance. And then you go back, and after you start feeling better, you go back and you measure it, and you see that the numbers, the cellular voltage is within that range it needs. Yeah. So that's why I like tools like this.
Yeah.
Because, yeah.
You're a bad man, because I need to buy one of those now. So
I'll send you a link to it. Maybe I'll even put it on this. But
please do. Yeah.
I've had a number of people like doing what you do.
Yeah.
I've had a number of them get it as well, because like a buddy of mine, he's a chiropractor, and he came over to my place because he lives in Jersey, and he came over, and he had a device, and I was like, hey, that's a cool one. It's really cool. It's very similar to the one that I have. And he was like, well, what's the one you have? I'm like, do you want me to pull it out? He's like, yeah. Now he's like, I think I need to buy that. And then a couple of his clients bought one, and so we should definitely talk more about this. But please keep.
No, this is great. And yeah, I've learned something there. Is it measuring like a phase angle? Is that how it's doing it with the cell voltage? Is it as a phase angle measurement device?
Yes, but it also gives you different opportunities to measure different, like it doesn't have to be just phase angle.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So
Excellent.
yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah.
Really, really cool.
Right. You've cost me some more money there, Josh, but I thank you for it.
Well, I'm with you because again, a lot of the things that we're talking about, I'm sure most
Yeah.
people have, their eyes are rolling right now because it's like
Yeah.
everything we're talking about is expensive. However, we also understand, and I'm sure we'll talk about this, but we also understand the ancestral side of it, the nature side of it,
Yeah.
right? And so sometimes these tools that we have them because we know that we might need a little bit more than just our word and
Yeah.
just our own experience, our anecdotal experience. Sometimes we need to be able to measure and show. And I think that's powerful in itself. And so I think the return on investment in something like this is super easy.
Yeah. Completely. And you just said what I was just going to say, which is, and this is my problem with the biohacking side of it, because yes, we may invest in these. This is not needed. These things are not needed now. What these are, I have a saying: for big problems, you need big tools. I had big problems. I needed big tools. So we get back to Jerry Tennant, and which is very relevant. He was at the conference, Healing is Voltage. There's a great quote in the book, and this is a medical textbook. It's hard going if you're not really into this stuff. But there's a sentence in there: with enough cell voltage and raw materials, the body can repair just about anything. There we go. There we go.
I don't know if
And if you just flick through that book and just show the viewers, it is a hardcore medical textbook. I think, is it page 119? This is not scripted, but
190.
119. There's a really great chart in there, which is just a little spreadsheet chart showing. I might be wrong in the 119.
Maybe it's 121. Is it that?
Well, it's not that one. It's a bit earlier, but it's a little spreadsheet, and it just shows what a healthy cell is. We'll break it down really simple. Healthy cells are made. New cells are made at 50 millivolts. Because let's talk about the electricity side of things. We're a big battery, but there we go. That's exactly the one. Right at the top of that. The viewers probably can't read it, but it says healthy cells are made at 50 millivolts. Normal for a child, I can't read it, but I'm going off memory, is 35 millivolts.
That's right.
Normal for an adult is 25 millivolts. Tired, sick, and unhealthy cells are somewhere in the region of 5 to 10 or 15 millivolts.
15 to 10. Yeah.
Okay. And then below that, bad things happen. There's a word there. Bad things happen. You may want to use the word. I don't know.
What, change polarity?
There's a change in polarity. And I think it says cancer occurs.
Yeah.
I think it says cancer occurs. So now, we do know, and this is mitochondrial function. We have roughly 37 trillion cells, give or take. So we're a bag of cells, salty water, which is why I have a water company, because it's like, we need hydration. We then need to activate that hydration, ideally through nature. We're a big solar panel. We ground. I know you're big into grounding. We've lived on the ground until very recently. And this is why sometimes for big problems, we need big tools. Unfortunately, there are places now, and there are things that you can buy, we want and need them, that we have access to them. And this is a big aim of ours at PIM Fit, is we want this to be accessible to everybody, even if they can't afford our service. We want to be able to ensure everybody can get this. So, but healing is voltage, and you cannot repair tissue. And that chart really states when you're young, you have very high healthy cell voltage. For a child to go from 35 millivolts for damaged tissue to 50 to repair is a small jump. For an adult, a healthy adult, 25 millivolts to 50 is a bigger jump. And as we age, this becomes much more difficult, to the point whereby it becomes, let's be honest, impossible. And this is by design. It is Mother Nature's plan. This is a big push in the right direction. We lay there, or we put a device on. Now, it is important to say, with low intensity PEMF devices, and there are many on the market, thousands, These work predominantly, in fact, only on increasing circulation in capillaries in the microcirculation. These do not penetrate deep into tissue. There's something called inverse square law, which you will know about, which is basically a formula stating that in order to get through tissue, so skin, fascia, ligaments, tendons, bones, skull, brain, out the other side, you need Gauss. Gauss and Tesla, both names that I'm sure viewers are familiar with. 10,000 Gauss equals 1 Tesla. We all know where Tesla came from, and Gauss was another clever chap who put his name to it. But this is the raw power, the horsepower, if you will, of it, if we're talking engine terms, to drive this EMFs, these pulsed electromagnetic fields. And again, there are good EMFs, because when we mention that term, I know, a bit like me with pain meds, people probably raise an eyebrow. There are good native EMFs, and then there are lots and lots of bad non-native EMFs, all of which blunt mitochondrial function. So our ability to hold cell voltage and for mitochondria, the power plants within the cell, to repair damaged tissue. Well-established science. Hans Krebs, Oxford University, for me, the most prestigious of the Nobel Prizes. But, this was what was such a wow moment for me. And I know that other modalities support mitochondrial function, hyperbaric, hot and cold thermogenesis, lots of supplements, coenzyme Q10, you name it. There's also things many people are now taking the commonplace. Going for a walk, a walk around the block, sitting on a park bench, sitting in your garden in daylight or sunlight, allowing an appropriate amount of light into the body, a good night's sleep. All of these things support mitochondrial function. We do not need all these gadgets, because sometimes for a big problem, let's say you've got a non-union bone fracture, that's not going to do anything. Neither is a walk around the block. For a non-union femur fracture, PEMF, according to the FDA, and according to lots and lots of peer-reviewed study, it does work. And we have many clients who and their consultants who've looked at scans before and after and said, well, we've never seen results like this before.
And the same happened to me when I did, I will spare the show the full details of it because I've talked about it before. But when I had a hernia repair surgery a few years ago, I had a very short recovery time, which means it was beneficial. It was very helpful. And when I went for my 2-week checkup, the doctor was the surgeon, he was extremely shocked as to how and why. And I started to explain to him what I was doing, mostly because I had the chair pad and the PEMF chair. So I'm just sitting in the chair most of the day, and I have the X system at home. So I just run it because it doesn't have an off switch, or it has an off switch, but it doesn't go off after a period of time. Right. So I just was running it because I'm sitting here watching TV, reading books and whatever. So I may as well just sit there and use it for most of the day. And then I sleep on a fully grounded bed. So what I was trying to start explaining this to the surgeon, and it was like his eyes glassed over. He just was like, yeah, kind of okay, I heard things come out of your mouth, but good luck. You know what I mean? Keep doing what you're doing. Because he doesn't, that doesn't make him any money. It doesn't, he doesn't have the time because he needs to go to his next appointment. And that's kind of what's unfortunate. But again, I only say all of these things to let people know that at the very basic, if you get a book like this, Healing is Voltage, and you really take the time to understand it, you can either take it from us or you can read on your own. But at the very end of the day, we are electric beings. We're vibratory beings. I say this all the time. And our body, our cells, the trillions of cells we have in our body, act like little batteries. Those batteries need energy to do anything. To kill themselves off, to repair, to recycle, to form new tissue, and to help to help heal bones and things like that. There's loads of research. This book is not as thick just because there's a bunch of pictures in there. It's thick because there's a lot of research, right? And so whether you believe in that research or not, how simple is it to just take off your shoes and socks or just get your bare skin on the earth and start from there? See what
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah. How affordable is that? How accessible is that? And it is, and the unfortunate thing is, in 2 generations, my grandfather in Italy used to go to primary school in bare feet. They were very poor. And in 2 generations, I'm now living a life entirely different, good in many ways, but it's again the confusion of what is good, what serves us, and what does not. And there's so much conflicting evidence, but that is, I mean, I think Jerry Tennant is a doctor times 2. I think he's a PhD and a medical doctor. He's a professor. He's eminent, but he's not the only one that agrees with that. I mean, for any non-believers, I'm going to quote a double Nobel Prize winning scientist, Linus Pauling, who I'm sure many people have heard of. I know you will have done. So Linus Pauling, I'm going to try and quote verbatim from memory here. PEMF is a benefit to mankind, infant to geriatric. It will change the paradigm of medicine. I think that's a direct quote. It is a direct quote. Now, he won 2 Nobel Prizes. He's one of 6 people ever to have won 2 Nobel Prizes. Who am I to disagree? There are thousands of peer-reviewed studies over many, many decades to show the efficacy of PEMF as a modality. I'm going to break it down to what we're saying. It's a big nature machine. This is a small nature machine that I can wear and go about my business. The systems you refer to, what is this? I love how you bring stuff up, Josh. This is brilliant.
Yeah, so this is PEMF is a benefit for mankind from infant to geriatric. PEMF will lead to a change in the paradigm of medicine. This suggests he saw significant potential in PEMF therapy and its ability to impact healthcare positively. So there you have it. This is just a quick AI overview.
Great.
And, so well done, because you nailed that just off the top of your head. But if people understand this Linus Pauling, 2-time Nobel Prize winner, I mean, he obviously knows things, right? In his experience.
Yeah.
And
I mean, he's sadly no longer with us. I think he passed away a few years ago, but he, took a smart guy, a lot of his work. I think he won one of his prizes for his work in vitamin C. But yeah, incredibly smart guy. And he's not the only one. There are literally thousands of peer-reviewed studies to show the efficacy of PEMF. You referred, I think it might help our viewers if we start talking about the differences in technology. You referred to a couple of devices before, an X machine and a chair, and we should probably talk about the differences because whilst all of this is pulsed electromagnetic fields, we are electromagnetic. I think most people know now the Earth is a big grounding mat. We are a big battery. By the way, that video there, that little animation, we've had that made recently to try and explain in lay terms. Here we go.
Can you hear that?
Yeah.
You could hear that? Should we play it?
It's about 4 or 5 minutes long, so I'm happy to play. It's entirely up to you. It's your show, Josh.
This
or
one
you
here
can...
is saying it's 2 minutes, 23 seconds.
Oh, yeah.
Should we play it? And
if you feel, that would be great.
Let's do it, because people can always click away from this or
wonderful,
skip forward if
wonderful.
they need to. But let's hear it. Here we go.
Wonderful.
So. Awesome. Oops. That is amazing. I think that is very succinct and very, very, very helpful for people to see and hear. Hopefully you watch that. Hopefully you listen to it. But I'll also link to that so people can maybe go back and watch it on their own time. But that's very succinct, very, very uh, well put together. So thank you for providing
Well,
that.
thank you. Our team worked really hard on that, and we're proud of it as a piece of work. Which we've had some really great feedback from scientists and lay people alike. Just to say that it's not just accurate, but we also feel it represents the experience because we're non-clinical. It's a comfortable environment, and we're there to support people. But I suppose the point is, it is a big nature machine. We can get a lot done in a very short period of time. So we're working with this equipment, Pulse PEMF, which is the equipment that you're familiar with. You're familiar with lots. You're like me. You've got loads of these things. I've got them go around my hair. They're all the same thing. But what we can do with this equipment and the big investment I made that you mentioned in the opening, I took a huge leap of faith. I was convinced the business would go bust. I'd be going back to my old job again in 3 months. But it was something I had to do. I didn't because people got results and they told their friends, or their friends said, "What the heck are you doing?" And then they came. So it just grew exponentially, organically. But because we're working on the whole body at once with a lot of energy, and I think also I think being sick for a long time, you learn a lot. I think also having an empathetic nature and being fairly intuitive as to what people are dealing with helps a lot as well, because it's how you use this technology. It's not just a case of sticking it on and turning it up. There is a lot of nuance to obtaining optimal results, which we're always striving towards improving. But I think we do a pretty good job, hence the growth of the business. But in essence, we can get a lot done in a short amount of time. We call it passive exercise. That's a phrase you'll be aware of. Cellular exercise. This is another one. We're working on all of the cells. Most people fall asleep. It's also a huge reset button for the autonomic nervous system. PEMF is at this level. You mentioned the device earlier. We can also, I've got one of the accessories here because I thought we might talk about,
Yeah.
this is called a power cube. We were talking about in Austin, and we should talk about barefoot shoes at some point as well, because you were explaining that a lot of people get plantar fasciitis.
That's right.
And this is our tool. So this plugs into that big blue box, which is just the pulse generator. That is a groundbreaking piece of equipment. The manufacturers of that, it is incredible, but it's how we can specify the frequency, the intensity, and also the comfort and elegance of how we can apply that energy to the body. And, for feet, whether you're into dancing, climbing, barefoot, running, whatever, this is it also works great on the head, the shoulders, low back, down the spine, whatever. This is just one of the accessories. Just to put it into perspective, this is just an accessory, I like to show people the connectors on these, to show the amount of energy these things. This is not a 3.5 millimeter jack plug that your headphones are on, which a lot of PEMF. There's PEMF and there's PEMF. There's a reason these things cost tens of thousands of pounds. They are military specification components inside them. They are the very best of the best. And they can do a lot in a short amount of time. So, we pass that energy through the body. The body knows exactly how to receive it, how to store it within the cell, and then how to utilize it in order to repair. And the difference between high intensity and low intensity was really explained in the video, because I'm not going to use our brand name, what it said in the video in one of our sessions, because we only use this equipment and it's the top of the line system. The same is for the X or any of the Pulse PEMF equipment. High intensity PEMF, there is an ion exchange. Stuff goes into the cell and stuff comes out of the cell. So oxygen and electrolytes and other molecules can go in. If they're good things, they will support mitochondrial function for cells that contain mitochondria, and that's most cells, not red blood cells. More ATP, there's better cell voltage. The integrity of the cell membrane is improved. And also waste product comes out. So ideally, that's just carbon dioxide. But when we start working with people, quite a lot of bad stuff can come out, cellular debris. So we make that, as you know, we make that comfortable for the client so that they're not experiencing unpleasant side effects. It might be mucus. It might be a few more trips to the toilet, the bathroom,
The loo.
the loo. And it may be a mild headache. It may be flu-like symptoms, but we make that experience comfortable for the client. What have we got here, Josh? This looks good.
Well, this is from the from your website, and it's the science behind PEMF. And so while you were kind of talking about what happens and what I was mentioning about the fact that our cells are like batteries, I wanted to just have some more examples of the research that
Wonderful.
are out there. So
Yeah.
so people can also, and you were talking about mitochondria and the axis of the cell and so forth and so on. So I wanted to show that while you were bringing up some of that.
Wonderful. So yeah, this is a pulse PEMF. Yeah, science of what's going on, and Pulse are very modest as a brand. They make the best. For me, this is the best wellness technology available by far. It's done things for me that nothing else has done. But I work now with thousands of clients. We as a company now work with thousands of clients, and fortunately, it's no longer just me now. We have a dedicated team around the UK, and we can get a lot done quickly. And Pulse are very modest, so they underplay, they downplay in terms of claims, and they make very, very few claims. But you only have to read go into PubMed or other scientific journals. There we are. There's mitochondria and organelles within the cell membrane. I can't see it too well, but I recognize what some of those things are.
Also,
So yeah,
I
if
think
people want,
I think it's important to point out, especially with the amount of people that have pets, it's important to also point out that these technologies not only work for us as humans, but they also work on our animals and on
yeah,
pets. Because at the end of the day, what's really cool about this technology when it comes to pets is that they are not subjected to the placebo effect, right?
exactly.
So that is what tells me a lot of times, like I have most of my clients that have purchased some of the pulse systems. Many of them have reported that their pets almost don't want to get off of the pad if they happen to have the pad somewhere where they can get access to, especially if it was like left on, maybe like, they've gone to the bathroom or whatever. I don't encourage people to leave those things running, but it's inevitable. It's almost like they always gravitate towards the power, And if you keep a pet indoors, it's kind of cruel and unusual punishment if you think about it, because they actually get grounded. They get energy from the earth through their paws, right? And so when you block that and you keep them indoors all the time, like maybe consider something, take them out more often, or maybe that pad, you could just put a towel over it, let them lay on the pad while you're off doing your thing, because they need it as well. Anyway, I digress.
It's I'm so glad you mentioned it because it's so true. And sorry, just reading something there. It's so true, and clients would almost rather have their animals benefit than themselves. And you're absolutely right. No placebo. So I've learned more working with dogs than 100 clients, 100 humans, because there is no placebo. We don't have that. Sometimes, we all have it, crazy human prefrontal cortex. It's just like, they just go, oh, this is good. I'm getting on it. And then when you turn it off, they get off. Pets also know when their owners, their keepers have had a PMF session. I've had clients ring me up say, why is my dog all over me? Are they trying to get this energy off me? And I'm saying, well, what was your relationship beforehand? Well, they were kind of kept the distance. Well, but I feel really relaxed. They're tapping into your heart rate variability. Animals are so smart. They're not affected
Yeah.
many of the things and, the crazy things that we're exposed to. So yeah, I love working with animals. We work with small and very large animals. They all love it. The big ones will just turn around and say, stick it here. And the smaller ones will just sit there and fall asleep. And the keepers just say, look, I'm not making this up. And we've had some things which I won't get into, but the anecdote, owners cannot believe it. They go talk to their vets or their vet's oncologist. They're very frustrated when they don't want to know. But yes, they work just the same as us. Their cells are just the same. A horse is a big human with slightly different, couple of different body parts, but they respond the same. And I think, how big PEMF is in the equine space, and Pulse PEMF have a huge equine department, and horses love it, and the horse whisperers know.
And that is big money, right? That's
Well, yeah.
something you don't play with. It's like when we hear about a celebrity or a very wealthy person or even a professional athlete, when they work with someone or something, the reason why it's so impactful is because people know that that demographic of person is able to kind of get whatever they want and do whatever they want to hit their goal. And so why is it they're choosing this or they're choosing that? And that's what I get asked a lot as a trainer. A lot of people want to know, okay, what is so special about you? Why is it that, these people are working with you? And I say, well, it's because I'm not a one-trick pony. I have a lot of experience in a lot of different things, just like you, right? And also having that story of not just you being healthy because you were gifted and you were born that way. You had to work hard. 30 years of dealing with the things that you've been going through is certainly enough to make me want to listen, which is why I've done so, right? And I know we've got plenty of other things to talk about. We're gonna have to definitely have you back on, but I definitely want people to understand that just because Pulse is here in the US primarily, there are options outside of the US, right? And
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
any of the people listening that are in the UK, definitely get in touch with Pete and the PIM Fit crew, because I think he's doing it right, and I put my money, my word behind what he's doing, and I think we've only scratched the surface. I think we still have some time to go over a couple more things, but I definitely want people to understand who you are and reach out to you. Like, I would love it if you send me a message in a few weeks and say, my goodness, I have to change my number or my email. I want you guys to hit him up because he's wonderful to talk to, but also he's doing something that is moving the needle in the right direction for humanity.
Well, thank you, Josh. And to your point, we didn't discuss this previously, but I will give you my email address, and if people do wish to reach out directly, it may take me a little while, but I always respond to an email. I took a couple of calls from clients just before this, and because they had questions. So genuinely we're there to help. It was not the intention. I didn't expect to be doing this. It's our 5-year anniversary next month, so it's a big moment in time for us. Thank you. I didn't think it would last 5 months, but it did, and we love what we do. Should we perhaps talk about? We haven't spoken about sleep yet, and sleep's as you know, as everybody I'm sure knows instinctively, sleep's a big part of recovery. I was not a great sleeper. My mother was not a great sleeper. My grandmother was not a great sleeper. Sure enough, when I checked my genetic makeup, I'm prone to less sleep than average. Yeah, I measure it now. I was getting 14 minutes of deep sleep a night. Yeah.
Right.
Sorry. I now get, almost 2 hours of deep sleep at night, which, again, Mother Nature's plan is as you get older, you have less quality sleep. Well, we can shift things in the right direction. You don't need to buy a system. You just need to do more of the right stuff and less of the bad stuff. And we know a lot more now about what was good, what is good all along. And nature provides almost all of that. I live in Lancaster. It's an old city in the UK that all the other Lancasters are named after. There's a Roman fort just behind me. It's actually a 1,000-year-old castle. Charles was there a couple of weeks ago, getting the key to it. But prior to that, there were 2 Roman forts. The remains of the sauna, of the Roman sauna, are still there. So built to
Really?
last. They knew you got hot, you got cold, good things happened. Hans Krebs hadn't discovered Krebs cycle and ATP production and cellular respiration and all this stuff. They just knew instinctively. You do this. They went to great lengths to support mitochondrial function over 2,000 years ago. And that castle's still there, and that sauna is still there. The remains of it, anyway. All the underfloor heating system is still there. So, these are not new things. Nature provides, but that is technology, and this is technology. And one of the great things now is that we know a lot. We can scientifically back it up. We can't unsee what we've seen as well in terms of results on ourselves and results on clients. And sleep is a big part of the whole recovery process. And when you give the body a nutrient in the form of cell voltage, circulation, oxygen, electrolytes, these are huge levers to pull for the body to repair itself. When you increase circulation, when you increase stem cell proliferation, which we know high intensity PEMF delivers, when you increase nitric oxide levels endogenously, which high intensity PEMF improves, when we increase VO2 max, which again, PEMF, high intensity is proven to, these are huge things. We've not spoken about bone density, osteopenia, osteoporosis. And again, the hundreds of peer-reviewed studies based around efficacy of supporting, bone density. And we're talking about testosterone production, which is upregulated with high-intensity PEMF. These are not things that we're going to get with low-intensity devices. There is a place for these. These things are incredible as a wearable. But then, for big problem, you need a big tool. But with high intensity, it has a remarkable effect. When the body's got something it didn't have before, in the form of this nutrient called cell voltage and nutrition into the cell, it gets busy. And when does it do that? In deep sleep.
100%. 100%. I think you pointed it out very well by saying that a lot of times people, and I'm guilty of this as well, but a lot of times when we realize we're not sleeping well, the first inclination is to do what? Melatonin or GABA or all the different things, right? And
Sleeping tablet.
sleeping tablets, right? And I actually do take melatonin from time to time. I don't take it all the time.
Me too.
I also take, because my friend of mine, Dr. John Lawrence, wrote a book called Melatonin Miracle, which he's one of the few that believes in high melatonin therapy, which, I've tried it. It worked well. I came off of it. I didn't have any negative effects like most people claim. So, okay, there is a place for that within me. And I just got a company reach out to me a few days ago, and it's this new product that I'm going to try that is called Kill Switch. And it's this supposedly amazing, like fully guaranteed, it's like a chocolate drink that you would drink at night. And it's
Sounds
supposedly,
great.
supposedly you're supposed to have it like a warm cacao drink. And I'm
Mhm.
like, wow, okay, I definitely will try that, and I'll report back, let you guys know. But that's not the only thing I'm doing, right? So it's like I do a number of things to where if this kill switch thing is going to make a change or make a difference, I'll be able to see it because I measure myself enough as a biohacker,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then I pass on that benefit of that experience to you as the listener, to as the viewer. And that's why we do the things we do. I really, it gets under my skin when people think that all I do and all we do is just spend money to then talk about little things. No, there's a number of people that message me that I don't share that they've transformed their life based on what we put out there. Right.
Yeah.
So why would I not continue doing that? For the people who don't like it and well, you don't have to listen, you don't have to watch, you don't have to even comment, you know?
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm happy that you shared what you've shared, because somebody's going to hear this and they're going to thank you and thank me for bringing you onto the show and for putting this out there. And that's what we're here for. Period.
Definitely. No, thank you. Thank you for having me. And yeah, we probably have scratched the surface. But as we know, but we obviously want to make it as absorbable as possible. Yeah, as credible, as scientifically verified, but also available to the layperson, which is why we're here. We're here for the masses. The reason I went into it, no one was speaking to me about this, and I went into it and it took off, and I've been very busy for the last 5 years. And now, very happy to speak about it on your show, and really appreciate the opportunity and the platform to do that, Josh.
Absolutely. But before we sign off, I would love to ask you one more question, because, and I promise to the listener and to the viewers, to the person that is watching this and is super excited and wants to hear more, I would love to invite Pete back onto the show, and we'll do another deep dive into other things. But the only way we know what you want to hear is by you mentioning it, right? So if you want to hear more about what Pete is doing and more about this field of cellular exercise, so to speak, then you reach out. And maybe it's nothing to do about that, but reach out, send a comment, make sure to like and subscribe. That BS, right? But before we jump off, Pete, I'd love to know, because you've talked a lot about where you were in your life, how you got to where you are now, some of the modalities that you've used to get you into a healthier state. However, you're still recovering. I feel like we are on a lifelong journey of recovery, all of us, right? But what is an exercise routine look like for you?
An exercise routine, that's a really good question, especially at the moment, because I'm limited as to what I can do because of the abdominal. I'm actually wearing like a bracing at the moment. It's a very lightweight one on the surgeon's instructions. So do you know what exercise looks like for me at the moment? Looks like I sauna every day. I class it as an exercise. So I get hot. Now I could sit in a hot bath and sweat. So that gives me some exercise. Moving, walking for me really suits me. I have 2 sprinter genes, so I can get away with murder. I build muscle really easily, and I retain it very easily. But sadly, I also spike blood glucose very easily as well. So I know it's a nuanced question. It's a nuanced answer, but it's both a gift and a curse. So for me, I can get away with murder. So I'm doing body weight, so squats, some light press ups, some push ups. I'm doing a little bit of dumbbell work at the moment, but only just getting back into that because my core is only just strong enough to do it. So it's mainly body work. I played at the weekend my first game of paddle. 4 games, and I said, right, I'm going to call it quits at that. I used to play a lot of tennis, and it was great because I felt like I was playing tennis again. And I wasn't sure how I'd be, and I was fine afterwards. No twinges, no pains, nothing. So at the moment, I'm going to class sauna as a little bit of a workout for me because heart rate's up there. And then hot and cold, I love it as well. It's quite addictive. And then a good walk. My problem is time to get out and walk. So that's what.
I'm glad you pointed out what you did, because I knew that you would be somewhat limited. That's the reason why I asked the question. However, I wanted to ask that and see what your response was, because I want to constantly encourage people to think outside the box when it comes to exercise. And you hit the nail on the head by saying movement, because I feel like movement, quality movement, which I talk about in my book, quality movement is much more beneficial to us in the long run than quality exercise. Quality exercise is a piece of the pie, but I feel like it's the smallest thing. If you do quality movement right and everything else up the system, up the chain right, or up the pyramid, quality awareness is my main thing. And that's number one. Quality rest is the next most important thing, which combines recovery and like rest, right? Sleep, all of that stuff. And then quality consumption is next. And then quality movement or quality activeness is next. And then the very final one is quality exercise. So that when you put it all together, if you're doing 1, 2, 3, 4 correctly, then doing 5 is a gift. It's
Mm,
icing on the cake. It's something you get to do, not something
mm,
you have to do. And I feel like we live in a world today where people are searching for the one thing that they think is going to give them the most benefit, is trying to like outwork a bad diet, trying to outwork poor sleep. It's not going to happen. It's going to catch up to you at some point in your life. So let's do what you're having to do right now. It's like, in a way, you're being forced to pull back a bit, but walking is amazing.
mm.
It's something that we should try to do before a meal and after a meal, but definitely after a meal. Why? Because that glucose spike you're talking about gets shuttled into the muscles to get used as glycogen, as an energy for the muscles. And then whatever doesn't get utilized, then maybe gets stored as fat. Well, so it should tell me that a postprandial walk should be the thing that we all kind of start with, period. Right.
Yeah.
And then I say to people, if you don't have the time to do that, then maybe you consider when you put food in your mouth and when you drink calories. Right. So anyway, yeah. Um,
Very well said, Josh.
thank you, Pete. Like, I know we didn't touch on this, but I'll say it really quick. Your name is actually Peter, and it's not in the English way that you would think of Peter. And most Englishmen would say Peter, even though it's Peter. Your name is actually Pita, Pita, Pitta, right?
Pita. So one T. Yeah.
Okay,
Pita.
Pita,
Yeah.
and
As in the bread.
as in the bread, pita bread, right? I think that is amazing, and I can't unhear that or unknow that. I think that's awesome. It makes you even cooler in my eyes. So I wanted to put that out there. But Pita, it was a true pleasure getting the chance to meet you in person. I said it earlier, but I'll say it again. And it was even more of a pleasure to get a chance to hear your story, to learn about more about what you're doing. I'm excited for the things that you have on the forefront, some of the things that coming out very soon. And I imagine there's way more beyond. But if you could just mention quickly for ways for people to keep in touch with you, social media, X, Y, and Z. If you could mention that,
Sure.
and we'll also list it in the show notes.
Absolutely. So I mentioned my email address. I wasn't going to say that, mention this, but I'm happy to give it out. It's pete@pemfit.co.uk. So nice and easy. The website for PEMFit is pemfit.co.uk. On there, you'll find a wealth of wellness related articles whereby PEMF may support, and they're all backed up by lots of peer review study as well. There are also lots of video testimonials from real life clients and blogs as well. So it's a good resource. Our water company, our hydration company is optimalhydration.co.uk. You can find us on Instagram or at PemFitUK, and you can connect with me personally on Insta at PemFit_guy.
GUI. Yeah, PIMFit_guy. And I think that might be safer with giving the direct message option versus the email, because I have a feeling it's going to be way more than you even realize. But if you are open to it and you want, then maybe we should have people reach out directly to you on Instagram or on the website. And then if you think it's like worthy of giving out your email, because I wouldn't want you to get, trolled or something like that with craziness. Like, you're a serious person and what you're doing is truly helping. And I don't want to divert any extra attention away from what you're truly doing. So
Thank you. Yeah, we're very busy, but at the same time, we are here to help people who genuinely, we are only here to help people that genuinely want and are ready to receive help. And if so, then that's why we exist. That's why we do what we do. And that applies to the whole team as well. We have an amazing team who are all up for it. So thank you, Josh.
yes, thank you. And to the listeners and viewers, my goodness, if you're still here, thank you for your time. Thank you for your dedication. We appreciate the support. And some of the best ways to continue to support the show, if you like what we're doing, just mention it to someone. We've got lots of links for the book that I was talking about, Healing is Voltage. We're going to have a lot of direct examples of different videos and documents you can go to. Check out the description. Also, definitely just share this with someone that you care about, because ultimately we are here to help. So thank you for your time. And until next time, this is Josh signing out from Simply Walk the Talk. Peace.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Josh.
Walk the talk, talking facts. Move like me, but I move a little fast. Make my move, here to last. Fasten these seatbelts, I'm coming past. Take care of me, longevity. Hack my biology, better believe. Walking the talk, soul, mind, and body connected. Better come give us a listen. Better come give us a minute or two. Open the box up, we giving you tools. Giving your engine the fuel that it needs. Breathing into it, it's autoimmune. Make a connection, we're stronger in two. Making us one of a kind of a few. Work on the mind, but show me your moves. If you do what you say, you know what to do. Yeah.
Simply walk the